Hi, Andrew from SACS, and welcome to video number 1 in our 11 video sequence on how to create a corporate culture. In this particular one, we'll be talking about the question of definition. What actually is corporate culture? And we'll be letting you know how at SACS, we, in our research and consulting activities, define corporate culture. Here's a definition to start with. Organisational culture refers to a series of attitudes and behaviours adopted by employees of a certain organisation which affect its function and total well-being. So, pretty general stuff. But I think there's a really important aspect of corporate culture, particularly as it relates to well-being, that determines whether people are going to have a good time or a bad time at work. And this is the ratio of good things that happen to them and bad things that happen to them. Now, this diagram deals with a thing called the magic ratio. This is the work of Gottman. And Gottman was able to identify that when couples have 5 or more positive experiences on average, in comparison with every negative experience, they tend to remain together. And this number is called the magic ratio because it was found to be incredibly consistent across different types of cultures. But what's really interesting is that it also seems to apply more broadly than relationships. So let's say if you go to your work and you have 6, 7, 8 positive experiences for every negative experience, then you're more likely to stay. So an aspect of corporate culture that's very important is purely and simply the ratio of good things that happen to you versus the ratio of bad things that happen to you. Now, I'm going to say often in this series of videos that people way overcomplicate and kind of mythologize the concept of corporate culture. That's a good place to start. How many good things happen to you? How many bad things happen to you? We want to take a simpler and more behavioral view of corporate culture. In this diagram, you'd see that corporate culture, and this is the work of Cotter and Heskett, you see corporate culture could be regarded as having 2 levels. Invisible things that drive behaviour, and then behaviour. Now, isn't that an interesting idea? Invisible things. So what kinds of things would be invisible things? Probably one of the most common things that's mentioned is values. People say it's values that drive corporate culture. I'm going to say, in fact, I think it's not values that are the most important thing. Values matter. But what about the personality of people that you recruit? So if you recruit a bunch of extroverts, and later on in this video series we'll show you that certain industries attract extroverts or introverts, or people who are really smart versus people who are not so smart, those kinds of things have a much more significant impact on corporate culture than does values alone. Now, once you've got those things right for your organisation, then values become very important because values determine whether a person feels that they fit, and they also feel that they like their colleagues. That's one of the things that values gives you. It gives you a sense of, I fit, and it also gives me a sense that I like the people I work with. That's what values are about. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, people talk about corporate culture as though it is purely organisational. And I'm going to say that the most important aspect of corporate culture is not the organisation. It's your job, your team, and your leader. Now, I'm going to say that corporate culture is almost a myth because it's the local team stuff, my immediate job, my immediate colleagues, my immediate leader. That will have an 80% impact on my experience and satisfaction at work. Whereas the organisational stuff, that's only 20%. So culture is local. Now, of course, there are corporate cultures, but I'm going to say that the corporate culture is in fact a kind of an amalgam and an average of the quality of the relationships in each team. And if anybody measures this stuff, and we do this for many organisations, the first thing you'll discover is that the differences between organisations are nowhere near as big as the differences between teams in the one organisation. That's a really important point. Culture is local. And later on in this video series, we'll describe to you how many corporate culture efforts fail because they tackle it at the corporate level rather than by the team kind of a level. And it's the team by team that matters. In the next video, we're going to talk about the markers of positive corporate culture. How can you tell whether your corporate culture is positive or not? Well, there are real markers that indicate whether this is the case. So if this content is of use to you, don't hesitate to like and subscribe.